The Evolution of Socialist Thought, from Rousseau to Bernstein. Welcome to The Crux. In this episode, we'll be delving into the history of socialism, from its roots in the Industrial Revolution to its modern-day interpretations. The discussion on socialism and its various interpretations is an important one because it raises fundamental questions about the nature of economic systems and their impact on society. The debate between capitalism and socialism has been ongoing for centuries, and it remains relevant today as we confront issues such as income inequality, the concentration of wealth and power, and the exploitation of workers. Understanding the different ideas and approaches within socialism can help us identify the strengths and weaknesses of different economic systems, and help us create policies that promote greater economic and social justice. By engaging in this discussion, we can broaden our understanding of political theory and explore new ways to promote a fairer and more equitable society. Socialism is a political theory that aims to achieve a more equitable distribution of wealth and resources by advocating for collective or government ownership of the means of production and distribution of goods and services. Socialism emerged as a political theory and movement in response to the stark social and economic inequalities that accompanied the Industrial Revolution in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. The rapid growth of industrial capitalism led to the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a small group of factory owners and capitalists, while the working classes were relegated to low-paying and often hazardous jobs with little to no job security or benefits. Many thinkers and activists began to advocate for a more equitable distribution of wealth and resources, arguing that the collective ownership of the means of production and distribution of goods and services was the key to achieving this goal. The idea was that if the workers themselves owned and controlled the factories and other means of production, they would be able to share in the profits and have greater control over their working conditions. In his seminal work The Social Contract and Discourse on Inequality, Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued that society should be organized in a way that ensures the common good and preserves individual freedom. He was deeply critical of the social inequalities that existed in his time and sought to develop a political philosophy that could address these issues. Rousseau believed that private property was one of the root causes of social inequality. In his view, the accumulation of wealth and property by a small group of individuals led to a concentration of power and resources, which in turn led to a wide range of social and economic inequalities. He argued that property should be held in common, rather than being owned by individuals or corporations, in order to achieve social justice and equality. For Rousseau, the key to achieving social justice was to establish a social contract that would ensure the well-being of all members of society. He believed that individuals should give up some of their individual freedoms in order to benefit the greater good, but that this sacrifice should be made willingly and with the knowledge that it would benefit all members of society. However, there are also some significant differences between Rousseau's ideas and those of socialists. While Rousseau believed in the importance of individual freedom and autonomy, many socialists argue that individual freedom must be balanced against the needs of the collective. Additionally, while Rousseau was critical of social hierarchies and inequalities, he did not go as far as many socialists in advocating for the abolition of capitalism or the establishment of a socialist economic system. Karl Marx's contributions to socialist thought are immense, and his theory of communism has been particularly influential. Marx believed that capitalism, with its emphasis on private property and the accumulation of wealth, was inherently unjust and exploited the working class. He argued that the working class would eventually rise up against the ruling class, or the bourgeoisie, and establish a classless society in which the means of production and distribution would be collectively owned and controlled. Marx's theory of communism was outlined in the Communist Manifesto, a pamphlet he co-wrote with Friedrich Engels in 1848. The manifesto argued that the proletariat, or the working class, was the only class capable of leading a revolution against the bourgeoisie. Marx and Engels believed that the capitalist system created a division of labor that allowed a few capitalists to amass wealth at the expense of the working class. They argued that capitalism would eventually collapse under its own contradictions, leading to a proletarian revolution that would establish a socialist society. Marx's theory of communism also emphasized the importance of the abolition of private property. He believed that private property led to the exploitation of the working class and that it should be abolished in a socialist society. Marx argued that socialism would allow for the collective ownership and control of the means of production, distribution, and exchange, thus leading to a more equitable distribution of wealth and resources. Marx's ideas have had a significant impact on the development of socialism as a political and economic theory. In The Poverty of Philosophy and a Contribution to the Critique of the Political Economy, Marx critiqued capitalist economic systems, arguing that they were exploitative and unsustainable. Marx believed that socialism was the necessary next step in human development. However, socialism is not a monolithic theory, and different thinkers have developed their own interpretations of socialist ideas. Edward Bernstein, in Evolutionary Socialism, argued for a more gradualist approach to social change, rather than a revolutionary one. He believed that socialism could be achieved through democratic means and without the need for a violent revolution. Edward Bernstein's ideas represented a significant departure from the revolutionary approach of Marx and Lenin. Bernstein believed that socialism could be achieved through democratic means and that socialists should engage with existing political institutions to achieve their goals. He argued that economic and social progress could be achieved through incremental reforms rather than the violent overthrow of the ruling class. Bernstein's approach was based on the idea that capitalism had evolved since Marx's time, and that the working class had gained more political and economic power. He believed that socialists should recognize the positive aspects of capitalism, such as the growth of productive forces and technological innovation, while also acknowledging its flaws and limitations. Rather than advocating for the complete abolition of private property and market exchange, Bernstein argued that socialists should work to regulate and socialize key industries and services, such as healthcare, education, and transportation. Bernstein's ideas were controversial among socialists, and he faced criticism from more orthodox Marxist thinkers who accused him of abandoning the fundamental principles of socialism. However, his ideas had a significant impact on the development of socialist thought, and many social democratic parties in Europe adopted his approach. Today, the concept of democratic socialism, which advocates for a mixed economy with both private and public ownership of the means of production, can be seen as a continuation of Bernstein's ideas. Vladimir Lenin, the leader of the Russian Revolution, developed his own version of socialism, known as Marxism-Leninism. In What Is to Be Done, and other works, Lenin emphasized the importance of a vanguard party to lead the working class in revolution. He believed that the party should be highly centralized and that the state should play a leading role in the economy. Vladimir Lenin's interpretation of socialism departed from that of Edward Bernstein's gradualist approach, advocating for a more revolutionary and centralized path towards socialism. Lenin believed that revolution was necessary to overthrow the existing capitalist system and establish a socialist state. In his works, Lenin emphasized the importance of a vanguard party, which he believed should be composed of professional revolutionaries who could provide the necessary leadership and guidance to the working class in the struggle for socialism. Lenin's vanguard party was highly centralized, with power concentrated in the hands of a small group of leaders who were responsible for directing the course of the revolution. According to Lenin, the state had a leading role to play in the transition to socialism, as it could use its power to expropriate the means of production from the bourgeoisie and redistribute them to the working class. Lenin's belief in the importance of the state led to the establishment of the Soviet Union, a socialist state that was characterized by central planning and state ownership of the means of production. Lenin's Marxist-Leninist theory had a significant impact on socialist movements worldwide, particularly in the 20th century. Many socialist revolutions, including those in Cuba, China, and Vietnam, were influenced by Lenin's ideas and sought to establish centralized socialist states modeled on the Soviet Union. However, the implementation of these ideas also led to criticism, particularly regarding the concentration of power in the hands of a small group of leaders and the limitations on individual freedom that often accompanied centralized socialist states. Democratic socialism, on the other hand, advocates for a more decentralized and democratic form of socialism. Bertrand Russell, in Proposed Roads to Freedom, argued that socialism should be achieved through democratic means and that the state should play a minimal role in the economy. He believed that socialism was the only way to achieve true individual freedom and equality. Democratic socialism, as a political theory, places a strong emphasis on individual freedoms and democratic processes while advocating for socialist policies such as collective ownership and control of the means of production. This approach to socialism is often seen as a compromise between capitalist and socialist systems, seeking to address the shortcomings of both. In contrast to Lenin's highly centralized vanguard party model, democratic socialists aimed to create a more decentralized and participatory political system. One of the key figures in the development of democratic socialism was the British politician Harold Laski, who sought to create a socialist society that emphasized individual freedom and democratic participation. Laski argued that socialism must be democratic to be truly effective, stating that without democracy, socialism would be an empty shell. He saw socialism as a means to empower individuals and create a more equitable society. Democratic socialism also emphasizes the importance of welfare policies and social safety nets to protect the most vulnerable members of society. The goal is to provide a basic standard of living for all citizens while promoting economic growth and innovation. In this way, democratic socialism seeks to balance individual freedom with collective responsibility and social justice. Another key figure in the development of democratic socialism was Michael Harrington, who argued that socialism could only be achieved through democratic means. In his book Socialism, Harrington emphasized the importance of grassroots organizing and political engagement in creating a more equitable society. He believed that socialism should be grounded in democratic values and that it was essential to build a broad-based political movement to achieve lasting change. In conclusion, socialism is a complex theory with diverse interpretations and approaches. From Rousseau's ideas of common property to Marx's theory of communism and Lenin's Marxism-Leninism, socialist thinkers have developed various ideas on how to achieve a more equitable society. However, the core principle of socialism remains the same: the collective ownership and control of resources and the means of production. That's all for today's episode of The Crux. We hope you gained a better understanding of socialism and its impact on society. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more informative discussions on political theory and economic systems.